Hey, Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will understand about the best time for trigger the mtor pathway. So first of all, we will understand about what is the mtor pathway. mtor pathway means the mammalian target of the rapamycin. So as you know about that, the mtor pathway also trigger the cancer, the oncogene activation due to the proliferation and rapid cell division, which that basically lead to not repair the DNA, and that DNA will damage further on, will lead to activate the oncogene. So in this way, the oncogene will increase the protein, and that protein is important for the cell proliferation and cell division. In this way, the mtor pathway basically will lead to progress the oncogenes and cause cancer. But in this case, we will understand about the mtor pathway is not bad, and mtor pathway is also the helpful for some reason. For example, if you want to grow your muscle and you are working hard in the gym, and in this way when you will work hard, so in this way you should recover and you should require the recovery, and in this way you should activate the mtor pathway, but the time you should adjust for activate the mtor pathway. So remember, the mtor pathway activate due to the rich amount of the amino acid glucose. So the basically the rich amount of the amino acid which that consumed due to the meat or the whey powder, or on the other hand the supplement which that increase the energy and increase the nutrient in the cell. When increase the nutrient in the cell, it means the nutrient rich condition which that activate the mtor pathway, and in this way the starvation mode will inhibit the mtor pathway. So when you should inhibit the mtor pathway and when you should activate the mtor pathway, it will depend basically with the person. If you are working hard in the gym, so in this way you require the mtor pathway for synthesis of protein and the growth of your muscle due to the proliferation of the myosatellite cell. So the myosatellite cells are present in the muscle. So in this way you should activate the mtor pathway for muscle growth. In this video we are understanding about that. So for example, when you will go into the gym, so exercise too much, and in this way that time you should not trigger the mtor pathway, because you should go in the fasting before the gym, and in this way when you will work hard, so AMPK pathway will activate. AMPK pathway will lead to stop the cell division and the proliferation during the gym time. And in this way basically whenever you will go into the home, and in this time you should spike the insulin. Basically the insulin when spike will lead to glucose, amino acid, and all things will enter into the cell. So the spike of the insulin due to the sugar, protein, and basically the sugar and protein, which that is important for triggering of the mtor pathway. So in this way the mtor pathway will trigger, and in this way your recovery will require the mtor pathway for synthesis of the protein. That is known as the biogenesis of the cell. So in this cell proliferation, cell maturation, like the myosatellite cell will mature in your muscle, and in this way the muscle will develop and grow. So the mtor pathway will work for it, and that time you should recovery time, and in this way you should quickly sleep. Whenever you will sleep, so the mtor pathway will activate, will lead to basically increase the protein synthesis, and in this way the recovery will mostly increase. So this is the first thing you should understand. So after the post workout you should trigger the mtor pathway due to the amino acid containing rich diet, like the basically branch chain amino acid as a supplementation, whey powder, and which that also trigger. But anyhow, in this time whenever you will recover, so in this way during whole night you will enter into the fasting state, and in this way you will not eat anything, and in this way during the morning time you should break fast again to trigger the mtor pathway, because mtor pathway basically increase the energy production, and in this way you should work in the office easily, and you can work easily throughout the day, and you will lead to activate. But that time the mtor pathway will trigger with the breakfast is important. So in this way the mTOR pathway will activate, and in this way whole day you should activate the AMPK pathway after the triggering of the mTOR pathway. In this way the AMPK pathway will lead to stop the proliferation of the cell during the activity, and in this way your sympathetic nervous system will increase while the parasympathetic nervous system deactivate, because the mTOR pathway which also trigger the parasympathetic nervous system, because the mTOR pathway required the parasympathetic nervous system activation. So the mTOR pathway also required the insulin. So when insulin basically increase, so you should spike the insulin and that mTOR pathway will trigger. So in this way the other growth factor like the growth hormone will also spike the mTOR pathway, and in this way the mTOR pathway is important. So remember the fasting also trigger, but the basically problem of the mTOR pathway is it will inhibit the autophagy, and that basically is the autophagy when inhibit, so the damaged cell will survive, even will lead to proliferate to lead to cause cancer. So in this way you should also spike the AMPK pathway during the fasting time. So the fasting and again eating and exercise. So first fasting, exercise, and then eating, and again breakfast, and then again you should cycle, and you should create the cycle to activate the mTOR pathway. So mTOR pathway depending on the situation. If you are hard worker in the gym, so you should spike too much mTOR pathway, while in the case of if you are a normal healthy, if you want to hold health in your body, so in this way the fasting is also important, while the mTOR pathway also important, because the fasting will trigger the AMPK pathway due to the energy starvation mode, will activate the AMPK pathway. AMPK pathway will survive the healthy cell, while autophagy will trigger for the unhealthy cell. So in this way the unhealthy cell will delete, or unhealthy cell will recycle, and that protein content will be used for the healthy cell for survival, and basically the maintain of their DNA and correction of the DNA. So that is why in this way you should improve your muscle growth due to the mTOR pathway. Remember about that. So I hope you make sense about that. I will give the link in description below about the mTOR pathway. You can learn a lot of knowledge through handwritten tutorial I have developed about that, so you can understand easily what is the function of mTOR pathway, what is the inhibition, and basically the rapamycin will inhibit the mTOR pathway, mammalian target of rapamycin, which that inhibits the cancer oncogene activation, but depending on the nature. And on the other hand, the metformin will trigger the AMPK pathway. In this way the mTOR pathway will inhibit. Ultimately AMPK pathway will activate, so the mTOR pathway will be inhibit. See you in the next video. For this time, bye. Allah Hafiz.